The emergency lights flashed red across the massive station that floated in space near the planet. Kepler 442b, Ambassador Jake Morrison, walked quickly through the metal corridors toward the main meeting room where 12 different alien species waited for him. His black shoes made soft clicking sounds on the floor as he moved past windows that showed the dark space outside. The Galactic Council had called this meeting because something terrible was about to happen, and they needed help from everyone. Jake pushed the heavy door open and stepped into a room filled with the strangest collection of beings he had ever seen. The Zephyrians looked like walking crystals that changed colors when they talked. Their leader was tall and made of blue crystal that sparkled under the bright lights. Next to them sat the Nebulans, who looked like clouds of gas held together by some kind of energy field. They had no solid shape and moved like smoke in the air. There were also the Korathi with their 6 arms and metal skin, the bird-like Averans with their bright feathers, and 8 other species that Jake had learned about during his 3 years as Earth's representative. Jake took his seat at the round table and waited. The head of the council, a Zephyrian named Krelson, stood up and his crystal body turned deep red. This meant he was very worried about something. Krelson spoke in the common language that all species used when they met together. "We have a big problem," Krelson said. His voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "A dark matter storm is moving toward the Centauri system. It will hit in 72 hours. 4 colonies are in its path. More than 50 million people will die if we cannot save them." Jake felt his heart beat faster. Dark matter storms were one of the most dangerous things in space. They could destroy entire planets, and there was usually no way to stop them. The storm moved through space like a giant invisible wave that crushed everything in its way. A Nebulan delegate named Veltar floated higher in the air. When Nebulans got excited, they moved faster and changed shape. Veltar looked like gray smoke spinning in circles. "Our best ships can only save 30% of the people," Veltar said. "We have run the numbers many times. There is no way to save everyone with the time we have left." The other aliens nodded or made sounds that meant they agreed. The math was simple and cruel. They had calculated how many ships they could send, how many people each ship could carry, and how much time they had before the storm hit. No matter how they added the numbers, most of the people in the colonies would die. Jake listened as the aliens talked about their evacuation plans. The Korathi would send their fastest ships. The Averans would use their cargo vessels. Each species would do what they could, but it would not be enough. The aliens had accepted this as a fact that could not be changed. Then Captain Lisa Harper's voice came through Jake's communication device. Lisa commanded the human ship Aurora that was doing research work in a nearby system. "Ambassador Morrison, we received the emergency signal." "What's the situation?" Jake explained about the dark matter storm and the colonies that were in danger. He told Lisa about the alien evacuation plans and how many people would be left behind. Lisa was quiet for a moment, then she said something that surprised everyone in the room. "We can help save all of them," Lisa said. The alien stopped talking and stared at Jake. Krelson's crystal body changed from red to yellow, which meant he was confused. "Ambassador Morrison, we appreciate that humans want to help, but you only have 12 ships. Even if you send all of them, it will only increase our rescue numbers by a small amount." Jake stood up and looked around the room at all the alien faces. Some had eyes like humans, others had different ways of seeing, but they were all looking at him with doubt. Humans had only been part of the galactic community for 50 years. Their technology was considered basic compared to the machines that aliens had been building for thousands of years. "You don't understand," Jake said. "We're not planning to evacuate anyone." Veltar spun faster and turned darker. "Then what are you planning to do?" Jake smiled, the kind of smile that humans got when they were about to do something that seemed impossible. "We're going to stop the storm." The room became completely quiet. Even the soft humming sounds that some of the aliens made when their breath stopped. Krelson's crystal body flickered between different colors as he tried to process what Jake had said. "Ambassador Morrison," Krelson said slowly, dark matter storms cannot be stopped. They carry the power of collapsed stars. No civilization in galactic history has ever successfully changed the path of a dark matter storm. No alien civilization, Jake said. But humans have never tried before. The Aviran delegate, a bird-like creature with golden feathers named Tyrex, made a sound like a laugh mixed with a whistle. Your species achieved faster than light travel only 50 years ago? We have been studying dark matter for over 3,000 years. If we cannot stop such a storm, how do you think you can? Jake walked over to the big window that showed space outside. He could see the distant lights of stars and the shapes of alien ships getting ready for the evacuation mission. Somewhere out there, a storm of dark matter was rushing toward innocent people who had no idea what was coming for them. Because, Jake said without turning around, we're human. He turned back to face the aliens. We've got this. The words hung in the air like a challenge. The aliens looked at each other through their different forms of sight and communication. They had heard humans use this phrase before in smaller situations, but never for something this big and dangerous. The phrase, we've got this, had become something that humans said when they were about to attempt something that logic saw it was impossible. Krelson body turned purple, which meant he was thinking very hard. Ambassador Morrison, we cannot stop you from trying, but we will continue with our evacuation plans. When your attempt fails, those ships will be the only hope for the people in those colonies. Fair enough? Jake said. Just don't be surprised when we succeed. As Jake left the meeting room, he heard the aliens begin talking in their own languages. They were probably discussing how humans always seemed to think they could do things that were clearly impossible. They had seen humans attempt difficult things before, but this was different. This was a force of nature that could destroy solar systems. Jake walked back through the corridors to his ship that was docked at the station. He needed to contact Earth and tell them about the plan that was forming in his mind. It was a plan that would require every human ship in space and some ideas that had never been tested before. It was the kind of plan that could either save 50 million lives or prove that humans were not as clever as they thought they were. Captain Lisa Harper stood on the bridge of the Aurora and watched her crew work at their stations. The ship was not built for emergencies like this, but Lisa had learned that human ships could do things they were not designed for when the situation was desperate enough. Her chief engineer Ryan Bell was already pulling apart control panels to see what modifications they could make. Science officer Emma Davis sat at her computer running calculations that would have scared most people. Lisa opened a communication channel to Earth. The signal would take several minutes to reach Admiral Paul Stevens at the Seoul Defense Fleet headquarters. But she needed to start the conversation now. Time was something they did not have much of. Admiral Stevens, this is Captain Harper aboard the Aurora. We have a situation that requires every human ship in the system and some ideas that have never been tried before. While she waited for the Admiral's response, Lisa walked over to Ryan's station. The engineer had tools spread across 3 different panels and was muttering to himself about power requirements and gravitational field generators. Ryan was the kind of person who could make any machine work better than it was supposed to. But he looked worried about this problem. What do you think, Ryan? Lisa asked. Can we actually do this? Ryan looked up from his work. His hands were already dirty from the machines he had been working on. Captain, the theory is sound, but we're talking about moving asteroids the size of small moons into exact positions while a dark matter storm bears down on us. One mistake, and we make the problem worse instead of better, Emma called out from her station. Captain, I'm getting the energy readings from the storm. It's bigger than we thought. The aliens were right about the power levels. This thing has enough force to crack a planet in half. Lisa walked over to Emma's station and looked at the numbers on the screen. The dark matter storm was a wall of invisible energy moving through space at incredible speed. It would hit the Centauri colonies in less than 70 hours, and there was nothing in its path that could slow it down. Nothing except the plan that was forming in Lisa's mind. Admiral Stevens' voice came through the communication system. Captain Harper, I received your message. What exactly are you proposing we do about this dark matter storm? Lisa explained. The plan that she and her crew had been developing. Instead of running away from the storm, they would create a network of gravitational anchors using asteroids and modified gravity generators. If they could position 17 large asteroids in exactly the right places, they might be able to create a gravitational field strong enough to bend the storm's path away from the colonies. Captain Harper, Admiral Stevens said after a long pause, you're talking about something that has never been attempted before. We would need to coordinate the movements of dozens of ships, position asteroids with perfect accuracy, and do it. All while racing against time. Yes, sir, Lisa said. That's exactly what we need to do. Admiral Stevens was quiet for a moment. Lisa could imagine him sitting in his office on Earth, looking at the same impossible numbers that Emma was calculating. On the Aurora. Finally, he spoke again. I'll mobilize every ship we have. Military vessels, cargo haulers, mining barges, even the old research stations. If we're going to attempt the impossible, we might as well do it properly. The next few hours were chaos, in the best possible way. Human ships from across the solar system received emergency orders to drop whatever they were doing and head for the coordinates that Emma had calculated. The plan required not just military vessels, but any ship that could carry equipment or move large objects through space. Danny Wright, who had been piloting luxury cruise ships between Earth and Mars, found himself commanding a vessel loaded with families who had been evacuated from other systems. His ship was not built for this kind of work, but Danny had volunteered anyway because that was what humans did when other people needed help. Captain Grace Kelly, who usually transported mining equipment to the outer planets, was now carrying gravity generators that had been modified by teams of engineers working around the clock. Her cargo hold was filled with machines that had never been tested under these conditions, but Grace trusted that human engineering would hold together when it mattered most. Dr. Amy Rodriguez worked from her laboratory on Luna Base, coordinating with teams across human space to develop the gravitational anchor system. Amy was one of the smartest people in the solar system, but even she admitted that the plan was based more on hope than proven science. The math works in theory, Amy told Admiral Stevens during one of their video conferences. But we're extrapolating from small-scale experiments to something that involves the gravitational field of an entire star system. We won't know if it works until we try it. Meanwhile, the alien fleets continued their evacuation efforts. The Zephyrians sent their fastest ships to the outer colonies. The Nebulans used their ability to compress matter to fit more people into their vessels. Every alien species contributed what they could, but they all knew that millions of people would still be left behind when the storm hit. Veltar of the Nebulans transmitted a private message to the other alien commanders. The humans are attempting something that violates several laws of physics. They will fail, and when they do, their ships will be destroyed along with any people they might have saved through normal evacuation. But the humans continued with their impossible plan. Ryan Bell worked with engineering teams across the fleet to modify engines and gravity generators. They needed each ship to be able to push asteroids that weighed billions of tons into precise positions. The modifications were dangerous and untested, but they were the only chance to make the plan work. Emma Davis coordinated with navigation officers on 17 different ships, calculating the exact positions where each asteroid needed to be placed. The margin for error was less than 1% across distances of millions of kilometers. If even one asteroid was in the wrong place, the entire gravitational network would collapse. As the human fleet approached the asteroid field near the storm's path, Lisa could see the dark matter storm on her long-range sensors. It looked like a wall of nothingness moving through space, destroying everything in its path. The storm was still 36 hours away from the colonies, but Lisa could already feel its gravitational effects pulling at her ship. All ships, this is Captain Harper, Lisa announced over the fleet communication channel. We're about to attempt something that no one has ever done before. Some of us might not make it through this, but 50 million people are counting on us to succeed. Let's show the galaxy what humans can do when we set our minds to it. The first phase of the operation began with the selection and positioning of the 17 asteroids that would serve as gravitational anchors. Each asteroid had to be moved into position with perfect accuracy while the fleet worked against time and the increasing gravitational interference from the approaching storm. Lieutenant Ben Carter, flying a small fighter craft loaded with guidance equipment, volunteered for the most dangerous job. He would need to fly close to each asteroid and plant the devices that would allow the fleet to control their positions remotely. The radiation from the storm's leading edge was already strong enough to damage his ship's shielding, but Ben knew that someone had to do the job. As Ben's fighter approached the first asteroid, he could see the human fleet spread out across space like a three-dimensional chess game. Each ship had a specific job to do, and all of them had to work together perfectly for the plan to succeed. Ben had never been part of something this big before, but he felt proud to be a human at this moment. The aliens watched from a safe distance. As the human fleet began implementing their plan, to alien eyes it looked like organized chaos. Human ships moved in patterns that seemed random, pushing asteroids with modified gravity beams while dodging radiation from the approaching storm. Krelson transmitted to his fellow Zephians. They move without proper coordination protocols. Their communication is inefficient. They are attempting to accomplish in hours what should take months of careful planning. But slowly, impossibly, the plan began to work. One by one, the asteroids moved into their assigned positions. The human ships worked together like they had been practicing this maneuver for years instead of making it up as they went along. Even when things went wrong, they adapted and found new solutions. The dark matter storm continued its approach toward the Centauri colonies, unaware that a small fleet of human ships was preparing to do something that every advanced civilization in the galaxy considered impossible. The first sign that things were going wrong came when Danny Wright's luxury cruise ship lost its main engine while positioning the 7th gravitational anchor. Danny had been trying to push an asteroid the size of a small city into exactly the right position when his engine systems overloaded. The ship that was designed to carry wealthy passengers between planets was now drifting in space with 5,000 evacuated colonists aboard and no way to move. Captain Harper, this is Danny Wright. My engines are dead and I'm losing life support. Power. I've got families aboard who were evacuated from the outer colonies and nowhere to take them. Lisa looked at her tactical display and saw Danny's ship floating helplessly near the asteroid field. The dark matter storm was 18 hours away and getting stronger. Every ship in the human fleet was needed for the gravitational anchor plan to work, but they could not leave 5,000 people to die in space. Ryan, can we spare any ships for a rescue? Lisa asked her chief engineer. Ryan looked up from his control panels where he had been monitoring the power systems of 17 different ships. Captain, if we pull anyone off anchor duty, we'll lose the gravitational network. But if we don't help Danny, those people will be dead before the storm even gets here. Emma Davis called out from her science station. Captain, I'm reading massive gravitational distortions from the storm's leading edge. It's interfering with our calculations. 3 of the asteroids are already drifting off course. Lisa felt the weight of command pressing down on her shoulders. This was the moment when the plan could fall apart completely. They had known from the beginning that something would go wrong, but she had hoped they would have more time to deal with problems when they came up. Lieutenant Ben Carter's voice came over the communication system. Captain Harper, I can reach Danny's position in my fighter. If I can transfer my guidance systems to his ship, maybe I can get his engines working again. Ben, your fighter doesn't have the shielding to survive in that radiation field for long. The storm's leading edge is already hitting that area. I know, Captain. But those people need help, and I'm the only one close enough to reach them in time. Lisa closed her eyes for a moment and made the kind of decision that commanders hoped they would never have to make. Do it, Ben, but get out of there as fast as you can. Ben's small fighter craft accelerated toward Danny's disabled cruise ship. The radiation from the approaching dark matter storm was already strong enough to interfere with his navigation systems. But Ben had been flying in dangerous conditions since he was old enough to get a pilot's license. He pushed his fighter harder than it was designed to go. The aliens watched this drama unfold with fascination and confusion. Veltar of the Nebulans transmitted to the other alien observers. The young human is flying directly into lethal radiation levels to save people he has never met. This behavior makes no logical sense. Krelson of the Zephyrians replied, "Their species seems to value individual lives over mission success. It is an inefficient way to operate during a crisis." But Ben reached Danny's ship and managed to transfer enough power and guidance equipment to get the engines working again. Danny's cruise ship limped away from the radiation field with its passengers safe, while Ben's fighter craft suffered severe damage from the radiation exposure. "Ben, get back to the fleet," Lisa ordered over the radio. "Sorry, Captain," Ben replied. His voice sounded weak and his communication signal was breaking up. "My fighter took too much damage. I'm not going to make it back." Lisa watched on her screens as Ben's fighter craft drifted toward the 13th gravitational anchor point. The asteroid there was still drifting out of position, threatening to collapse the entire gravitational network that they had spent hours building. "Ben, don't even think about it," Lisa said. "Captain, someone has to get that anchor in position or the whole plan fails. My fighter still has enough power for one more guidance run." Before Lisa could stop him, Ben accelerated his damaged fighter craft toward the drifting asteroid. The radiation from the dark matter storm was getting stronger every minute, but Ben used the last of his ship's power to fire guidance rockets that pushed the asteroid into exactly the right position. "Anchor 13 is locked in place," Ben reported. "The gravitational network is stable." Ben's fighter craft went silent after that. The radiation from the storm's leading edge had finally overwhelmed his ship's systems. Lieutenant Ben Carter, who was only 25 years old, had given his life to keep the plan working. The human fleet observed 30 seconds of radio silence for Ben, then continued with their impossible mission. There would be time to mourn later if they survived long enough to have a later. Captain Grace Kelly and her engineering team worked frantically to keep the gravity generators functioning as the storm's influence grew stronger. The machines that they had modified for this mission were operating far beyond their design limits, and some of them were starting to fail. "Captain Harper, this is Grace Kelly. I'm losing power to the generators on anchors 4 and 9. If I can't get them back online, we'll lose containment on the whole gravitational field." Grace's cargo ship was carrying equipment that had never been tested under these conditions. The gravity generators were supposed to work in the controlled environment of a laboratory, not in the middle of a cosmic storm that could destroy planets. But Grace and her engineers kept the machines running through pure determination and creative problem-solving. Dr. Amy Rodriguez monitored the entire operation from Luna Base, watching gravitational readings that danced between success and disaster. The dark matter storm was behaving in ways that no computer model had predicted. Sometimes it seemed to accelerate toward the colonies. Other times it appeared to slow down as if it was fighting against the gravitational anchors. "Admiral Stevens, the storm is responding to our gravitational network, but not in the way we expected," Amy reported. "It's like the dark matter is alive and trying to resist our attempts to control it." Admiral Stevens coordinated the operation from Earth, watching reports come in from 17 different ships scattered across millions of kilometers of space. Each ship was fighting its own battle against equipment failures, radiation damage, and the growing gravitational chaos caused by the approaching storm. With 12 hours left before the storm reached the colonies, the human plan appeared to be working. The storm's trajectory had shifted by 0.3 of a degree, which was not enough to save the colonies completely, but it proved that humans could influence forces that alien civilizations considered beyond control. Then something unexpected happened. The dark matter storm, instead of simply changing direction, began to react to the gravitational network in a way that no one had anticipated. The storm started to slow down and compress, as if the 17 gravitational anchors were not just redirecting it but actually capturing it. Emma Davis stared at her instruments and called out readings that made no sense. Captain, the storm is collapsing in on itself. The gravitational anchors aren't just bending its path, they're creating some kind of containment field. Lisa looked at the tactical display and saw something that should have been impossible. The wall of dark matter that had been rushing toward the colonies was now spiraling inward like water going down a drain. The gravitational anchors that were supposed to redirect the storm were instead pulling it into a controlled vortex. Ryan, are you seeing this? Lisa asked. Ryan looked up from his engineering displays with an expression of complete amazement. Captain, according to these readings, we're not just stopping the storm, we're converting it into something else entirely. The alien observers watched in stunned silence as the human plan produced results that violated everything they knew about dark matter physics. The storm that should have destroyed 4 colonies was instead being transformed into a stable, gravitational phenomenon that posed no threat to anyone. Veltar of the Nebulans transmitted an emergency message to the Galactic Council. The humans have done something that our science says is impossible. They have not just stopped a dark matter storm, they have controlled it. But the humans were too busy trying to understand what they had accomplished to worry about what the aliens thought. The gravitational readings were showing effects that extended far beyond the original storm. Space itself seemed to be healing from damage that had been caused by previous cosmic disasters. As the 12-hour countdown continued, it became clear that the human plan had succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams. The colonies were safe. The storm was contained, and something extraordinary was happening to the fabric of space in the entire sector. Dr. Amy Rodriguez stared at her computer screens on Luna Base and could not believe what the instruments were telling her. The dark matter storm had not simply been stopped or redirected. It was transforming into something that human science had only dreamed about in theoretical papers. The collapsing vortex of dark matter was creating a resonance effect that spread outward from the gravitational anchor points like ripples on a pond. Admiral Stevens, you need to see this, Amy said, over the communication link to Earth. The dark matter isn't just dissipating. It's converting to usable energy and redistributing itself to strengthen the gravitational fields of nearby star systems. Admiral Stevens looked at the data that Amy was transmitting to his headquarters. The numbers showed something that should have been impossible according to everything that human scientists knew about physics. The dark matter storm, which had contained enough destructive energy to crush planets, was now spreading that energy across space in a way that actually improved the stability of solar systems. Captain Lisa Harper watched from the bridge of the Aurora as space itself seemed to change around them. The gravitational readings from her instruments showed that planets throughout the sector were moving into more stable orbits. Star systems that had been damaged by previous cosmic disasters were being healed by the expanding energy field. Emma, are you getting readings on what's happening to the Kepler system? Lisa asked her science officer. Emma Davis looked up from her station with wide eyes. Captain, the planets in the Kepler system lost their stable orbits 300 years ago after a supernova damaged their gravitational field. According to these readings, they're moving back into proper orbital patterns. The effect was spreading faster than anyone had expected. Solar systems across the sector were experiencing what could only be described as gravitational healing. The energy from the collapsed dark matter storm was repairing damage that had been caused by cosmic disasters over thousands of years. Captain Grace Kelly, who was monitoring the cleanup operation near the anchor points, made a discovery that changed everything. Captain Harper, I'm detecting some kind of stable distortion in space near Anchor Point 7. It looks like the gravitational collapse created a permanent structure. Lisa ordered the Aurora to investigate Grace's discovery. What they found was something that would revolutionize space travel for every species in the galaxy. The controlled collapse of the dark matter storm had created a network of stable wormholes that connected distant star systems with instantaneous travel routes. Commander Tyler Brooks, who was leading a team of engineers to examine the new phenomena, transmitted his findings to the fleet. These aren't just wormholes. They're stable, permanent connections between star systems. Travel that used to take months can now be completed in minutes. The implications were staggering. The human attempt to save the Centauri colonies had accidentally created the foundation for a new age of galactic civilization. The stable wormhole network would allow species to trade, communicate, and cooperate in ways that had never been possible before. The alien observers were struggling to understand what they had witnessed. The Zephyrian representative, Krelson, had been monitoring the human operation from the beginning, but nothing in his species' thousands of years of scientific knowledge had prepared him for what he saw now. "This is impossible," Krelson transmitted to his fellow Zephyrians. "They have not just prevented a disaster. They have created something that will benefit the entire galaxy." Veltar of the Nebulans was even more disturbed by what the humans had accomplished. Their plan should have failed. The mathematics clearly showed that their approach would not work. Yet somehow they have achieved results that surpass the greatest engineering projects in galactic history. The Karathi delegate, a six-armed being named Zexhar, had been calculating the energy requirements for what the humans had done. The power needed to create stable wormholes requires the output of multiple stars. The humans used only 17 modified gravity generators and some asteroids. It should not be possible. But the evidence was impossible to deny. The wormhole network was stable and functional. Test probes sent through the connections emerged in distant star systems exactly where the calculations predicted they would. The humans had not just solved an impossible problem, they had created a solution that was better than anyone had dared to hope for. Dr. Amy Rodriguez was working around the clock to understand the science behind what had happened. Admiral Stevens, "I think I know why the plan worked better than expected. The dark matter storm wasn't just a random cosmic phenomenon. It was carrying organized energy patterns that our gravitational anchors were able to capture and redirect." Amy's discovery suggested that dark matter storms might not be the random disasters that everyone had always believed them to be. If humans could learn to predict and control these storms, they might be able to prevent cosmic disasters throughout the galaxy, while creating beneficial structures like the wormhole network. The Centauri colonies, which had been facing certain destruction 12 hours earlier, were now safe and connected to the rest of the galaxy through instantaneous travel routes. The colonists who had been preparing to die were instead witnessing the birth of a new era of galactic civilization. Captain Danny Wright, whose disabled cruise ship had nearly derailed the entire operation, was now ferrying passengers through the new wormhole network. "Captain Harper, I just transported a group of Zephyrian scientists from the Centauri system to the outer rim in 30 seconds. This is going to change everything." The human fleet had accomplished something that would be remembered for thousands of years. They had faced a disaster that threatened millions of lives, and not only saved those lives, but created something wonderful from the crisis. The sacrifice of Lieutenant Ben Carter and 16 other humans who had died during the operation had not been in vain. Lisa stood on the bridge of the Aurora and looked out at the stars that now seemed closer than they had ever been before. The stable wormhole network stretched across the sector like a web of light, connecting civilizations that had been separated by vast distances. "Admiral Stevens, mission accomplished," Lisa reported to Earth. "The colonies are safe. The storm has been neutralized, and we've accidentally created the most significant advancement in space travel since the invention of faster-than-light engines." Admiral Stevens' response came back immediately. "Captain Harper, you and your people have done something extraordinary. The entire galaxy is going to want to know how humans accomplished the impossible." But even as they celebrated their success, the humans knew that this was just the beginning. The stable wormhole network would need to be mapped and maintained. The science behind the dark matter conversion would need to be studied and understood. And somewhere in the galaxy, there were probably other cosmic disasters, waiting for someone brave enough to face them. The aliens who had watched the human operation were already beginning to change their opinions about this young species that had joined the galactic community only 50 years ago. The beings who had seemed primitive and reckless now appeared to possess insights into the fundamental nature of the universe that older civilizations had missed. The Galactic Council called for an emergency session to discuss the implications of what the humans had accomplished. Representatives from every major species wanted to understand how a relatively new civilization had solved a problem that had challenged the galaxy's greatest minds for millennia. As news of the successful operation spread throughout known space, one question was being asked by every intelligent species in the galaxy. How did the humans know that their impossible plan would work? The answer to that question would define humanity's role in galactic civilization for generations to come. 6 months after the dark matter storm incident, the Galactic Council station near Kepler 442b was busier than it had ever been in its 300-year history. Ships from every major civilization in the galaxy arrived daily to study the stable wormhole network that the humans had accidentally created. The station that had once been a quiet meeting place for diplomatic discussions was now the center of the most important scientific revolution in galactic history. Ambassador Jake Morrison walked through corridors that had been expanded twice to handle all the new visitors. Alien scientists, engineers, and diplomats filled every available space, all trying to understand how humans had accomplished something that their combined civilizations had considered impossible. Jake was on his way to a meeting that would determine humanity's place in the galaxy. For generations to come, the main council chamber had been reconfigured to accommodate representatives from 43 different species. Admiral Paul Stevens sat next to Jake at the human delegation table, while Captain Lisa Harper represented the fleet that had carried out the impossible mission. Dr. Amy Rodriguez joined them via holographic projection from her laboratory on Luna Base, where she continued to study the physics behind their success. Krelson, the Zephyrian Council leader, stood at the center of the chamber. His crystal body had been a steady blue color for the past month, which meant he was in a state of deep contemplation. The successful human operation had forced every advanced civilization to reconsider everything they thought they knew about physics and engineering. We have gathered today to discuss the implications of what humanity accomplished 6 months ago, Krelson announced. The stable wormhole network has reduced travel times between star systems from months to minutes. Trade routes that were economically impossible are now profitable. Scientific collaboration between species has accelerated beyond all previous measurements. Veltar of the Nebulans floated higher in the chamber, indicating that he wanted to speak. The economic impact alone has been extraordinary. The Centauri colonies, which were facing destruction, are now the hub of galactic commerce due to their position at the center of the wormhole network. Entire civilizations are restructuring their societies around instant interstellar travel. Jake listened as alien after alien described the ways that the human success had changed their worlds. The bird-like Everons reported that their exploration fleets could now survey distant galaxies that had been beyond their reach. The six-armed Korathi had established manufacturing centers, connected by the wormhole network that could produce goods for the entire galaxy, but the deeper implications were what truly concerned the older civilizations. Dr. Amy Rodriguez had continued her research into dark matter storms and discovered patterns that suggested these cosmic disasters were not random events. If humans could learn to predict and control dark matter storms, they might be able to reshape the galaxy itself. Dr. Rodriguez, please share your latest findings with the Council, Krelson requested. Amy's holographic image became clearer as she activated her presentation systems on Luna Base. Honored delegates, our analysis of the dark matter storm shows that these phenomena carry organized energy patterns that can be captured and redirected using gravitational manipulation techniques. We believe that dark matter storms occur naturally throughout the galaxy and could be harvested to create beneficial structures. The implications of Amy's research sent waves of concern through the alien delegates. If humans could control dark matter storms, they would possess the power to create or destroy star systems at will. No civilization in galactic history had ever wielded such cosmic-scale influence, the Korathi delegate Zexhar spoke for many of the older species when he said, "Dr. Rodriguez, your research suggests that humans could prevent cosmic disasters throughout the galaxy, but it also means that humans could cause such disasters if they chose to do so." Jake stood up to address the concern that he knew was troubling every alien delegate in the chamber. "Honorable representatives, humanity has no interest in using this knowledge to threaten or control other species. We discovered these techniques while trying to save lives, and that will always be our primary goal." Admiral Stevens added, "The human government is prepared to share our dark matter research with all members of the Galactic Council. We believe that this knowledge should benefit everyone, not just humanity." The offer to share their research surprised many of the alien delegates. Most species guarded their advanced technologies carefully, using them to maintain advantages over their neighbors. The human willingness to share knowledge that could reshape the galaxy was almost as remarkable as their original achievement. Veltar changed shape to indicate deep thought. "Ambassador Morrison, we must ask the question that has troubled every species since your success 6 months ago. How did you know that your plan would work? Your species has been part of the galactic community for only 50 years. You lack the scientific resources and accumulated knowledge of civilizations that have existed for millennia. Yet you succeeded where we all expected failure." Jake smiled the same kind of smile he had worn 6 months ago when he told the council that humans would stop the dark matter storm. "Veltar, that's exactly why we succeeded. We didn't know enough to understand why it was impossible." The chamber fell silent as the alien delegates processed Jake's words. The idea that ignorance could be an advantage in scientific endeavors was foreign to species that valued accumulated knowledge above all else. "You see," Jake continued, "when you told us that dark matter storms couldn't be stopped, we heard that as a challenge rather than a fact. Humans have a long history of doing things that experts say are impossible. We flew before we understood aerodynamics. We went to space before we fully understood orbital mechanics. We achieved faster than light travel by ignoring the theories that said it couldn't be done." Dr. Rodriguez added from her laboratory, "Our approach to the dark matter storm was based on intuition and creative problem-solving rather than established scientific doctrine. We tried something that had never been attempted because we didn't know we weren't supposed to try it." The explanation both impressed and concerned the alien delegates. The idea that a young, relatively primitive species could succeed through ignorance and determination challenged everything that galactic civilization had been built upon. Krelson S. Crystal. Body shifted through several colors as he contemplated the implications. "Ambassador Morrison, if human methods prove superior to traditional scientific approaches, it would require us to reconsider the fundamental assumptions of our civilizations." "Not superior," Jake replied, "just different. Every species brings unique perspectives to galactic problems. Humans bring the perspective of a species that hasn't learned what's impossible yet." The council session continued for hours as alien. Representatives asked detailed questions about human methods and motivations. They wanted to understand not just how humans had stopped the dark matter storm, but why they had been willing to attempt something so dangerous. Captain Lisa Harper explained the human concept of calculated risk-taking. "We knew the plan might fail and that people might die in the attempt. But we also knew that doing nothing would guarantee the deaths of 50 million innocent beings. When faced with certain disaster, humans are willing to attempt uncertain solutions." The session concluded with the establishment of the Human Engineering Corps, a joint human-alien organization dedicated to solving impossible problems throughout the galaxy. Captain Harper accepted command of the new flagship vessel Determination, while Ryan Bell would lead teams training alien engineers in human-style creative problem-solving. As the delegates prepared to leave, Jake walked to the memorial that had been built near the station's main docking bay. The memorial honored Lieutenant Ben Carter and the 16 other humans who had died during the dark matter storm operation. The simple inscription read, "They said it couldn't be done. We did it anyway." Alien dignitaries from across the galaxy visited the memorial daily, trying to understand the species that had turned certain disaster into unprecedented opportunity. Many of them left small tokens or messages expressing their gratitude for the human sacrifice that had benefited the entire galaxy. Jake was reading some of these messages when his communication device signaled an incoming emergency alert. A new crisis was developing in the Vega system, where an ancient alien artifact was destabilizing the local star and threatening to destroy 5 inhabited planets. The alien governments were already beginning standard evacuation procedures, calculating how many lives could be saved before the star went supernova. It was the same kind of mathematical certainty that had surrounded the dark matter storm 6 months ago. Jake opened a communication channel to Earth and smiled as he prepared to deliver the message that had become humanity's signature phrase throughout the galaxy. Admiral Stevens, we have another situation that the aliens say is impossible to solve. The Vega system is facing total destruction and they're planning evacuation procedures. Admiral Stevens' response came back immediately, carrying the confidence that had made humans the galaxy's problem solvers of last resort. Understood, Ambassador. How long do we have? 72 hours before the star goes critical.